Alright, this is section 9.2. We're going to learn about the side-side-side congruent triangle, side-angle-side congruent triangle, and angle-side-angle congruent triangle. Those are just little ways to abbreviate when you're proving congruent triangles. And as you remember from the first section, when we're looking at congruent triangles, you can name 3 side pairs and 3 angle pairs. But if you have just 3 side pairs, then you do know they're congruent. We'll talk about side, angle, side, and all 3 of these in a minute, but let's look at what they want us to do. We're going to be using some words that you're going to need to understand. The first one is the word opposite. AB is opposite angle C. That means if you look at the picture, AB, the segment AB, if you look across the triangle, angle C is opposite that segment. Look at the next one, number 2. On this one, we use the word included between. So AB is included between angles A and B, because it's part of, this side is made up between these 2 angles. A in relationship to BC, that's another opposite. So you can describe an angle opposite a side. I'm not spelling that well. OPPOSITE. And then you could also say that A is included between the segments AB and AC. Let's look at the 3 different congruence statements that can show that 2 triangles are congruent. And if you'll notice, the tick marks will kind of help you understand these. SSS stands for side, side, side. This might be the easiest one because you just have to have 3 congruent statements all saying that the sides are the same. So if all 3 pairs of corresponding sides are congruent, then the 2 triangles are congruent. Another one, if this 3rd pair of sides are not marked but the included angle is marked, that one's called side angle side, or you can use SAS for short. But the abbreviation is for side angle side. See how the word, this included angle, the angle's marked between the 2 congruent sides. That's important. It needs to be between the 2. You can't just mark it anywhere. It has to be in the middle. Look at the next one. Angle, side angle. See how the marking on the side is between the 2 angles? That's because you have an included side. So that's angle, side angle. Alright, let's try a few. In each example, answer each of the following questions. State the congruent parts, how the triangles are congruent, and then the congruent statement. Alright, let's state the congruent parts. That's really just what's tick marked. So you're just going to name the congruent parts. Let's start with this side AB. If you look at side AB, it's got 1 tick mark, so we know that DE is the congruent segment. The included angle is angle B. It's congruent to angle E. They both have 1 tick mark, a curve inside that angle. And then the 2 tick mark side is BC and EF. So that's how you name the congruent parts, by just looking at the picture. Part B wants us to figure out, of the 3 that we just learned, which one this is. And you notice this one has an included angle, so it's called side angle side. Remember, when you draw a congruent statement, you write a triangle. You can name this one. I'll start with A, B, C. And it's congruent. And just remember that A corresponds with D. Think about where it would slide into the next one. B would correspond with E, and C would correspond with F. So that would be the congruent statement. Alright, let's look at the second example. When two triangles share a common side, you can tick mark that side. So we'll go ahead and draw a line, because PR, I think I'll start with that one. PR is the same part of both the left triangle and the right triangle, so you can use it twice. The tick mark is on. Now remember, up in example 1 we could just use one letter to name the angle, but on this one you can't just say angle P. You have to name it using 3 letters. So I'll name it SPR. And the one that's tick marked with one marking here comes from this side, so it's QPR. And the angle symbol. The two that have the right angle box are PRS and PRQ. Oops, I can't put Q there, I have to put R. PRQ. You have to name the vertex in the middle. The reason why these are congruent, remember the 3 choices are side, 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 angle, side. This one's angle, side, angle, because this angle, this side, and this angle are all the corresponding parts that match this one on the other side. So it's called angle, side, angle. That's how we know these two triangles are congruent. The congruent statement, I'll name the left triangle SPR. If I start with the letter S, the corresponding angle to S is Q. P is still P, and then R would be the congruent corresponding angle. On example 3, again, this one is sharing a side, so we can name the side they share as HF. And it kind of looks funny to say HF is the same, but they're both using it, so we need to name it. EH has one tick mark, so it's congruent to FG. And the one that has 2 tick marks, EF, and it's congruent to HG. This one is side, side, side. That's how we know, because we've named 3 congruent corresponding sides. If we name the top triangle HEF, on this one notice that HE goes from H to E, so this one we have to go from F to G, because F is the angle that corresponds with H. Think of rotating that triangle around. F and H would be the corresponding angles. And then E would be, the corresponding angle would be G, and then H. That one's a little bit trickier, but just look at it and see how you would have to turn that first triangle around. Example 4. This one. Another thing that you can mark, not by definition, is vertical angles. So before I even start this one, I want you to notice that these crossing lines right here make these two angles the same. Those are called vertical angles. Now we can't just use the letter X, because there's a vertex, lots of angles at letter X. So if I were to name that angle, I would have to use WXV, and it would be congruent to YXZ. The other marked angle, the given ones were angle V and angle Z. And it looks like the side is marked, the tick marked VX. That side corresponds with XZ. The reason on this one would be angle, side, angle. And because they have an included side. See how on this one there's an angle, side, angle, angle, side, angle. So that's how we named 3 corresponding parts. 2 of them were angles and 1 of them was the included side. So that would be angle, side, angle. Your congruent statement, you might want to try it. I'm going to use WVX. I just decided that I was going to start with W and then V and then X. So I need to start with Y and then Z and then X. And it does matter, the order of the letters, especially the second one. The first one doesn't matter so much, but the second one you do have to put it with the corresponding parts. Okay, this one's an interesting one. Number 5 didn't tick mark anything, but the arrows, I'm going to help you remember this, the arrows mean opposite sides are parallel. Okay, if the opposite sides are parallel, then the angles, this is a parallelogram and the opposite angles are the same. So I know M and K are the same. So go ahead and write angle M is congruent to angle K. Now, looking at that diagonal line, you're going to have to mark these are called alternate interior angles. And we can't just use the letters J and L. We have to use 3 letters because you don't know if you mean this little bitty angle or this one. So MJL would be congruent to KLJ. And let's see, what else? In a parallelogram, the opposite, let me think, what could we do? Yeah, we can name that one. This one we can name because they share this side. I just saw that. So JL, the segment JL, is congruent to the segment JL. Or you could call it LJ if you wanted to. You know what? That's going to not be one of the 3 that we've picked. So I'm going to have to take off this M and K. Actually, let me mark that out. Instead of M and K, we're going to have to use the alternate interior angle that go this way. And I'm going to show you why I'm picking to do this, because I'm noticing I'm going to have to use angle side angle. And see the sides included between the 2 angles, so I can't prove it using those 2. So you might want to mark those off. We're going to have to say that KJL is congruent to MLJ. That was not going to let me prove it using angle side angle, just this other one was. Alright, the triangle that's on the bottom, let's call it JML, is congruent to, since I started with J, I'm going to have to start with L, because J corresponds with L on this one, this angle right here. Since my middle letter was M, I need to use K, they are the corresponding parts, and then J. I might have confused you on that one, so come see me if you still have a problem with that one. Alright, let's just now look at the tick marks and decide what the congruent statement would be. See how the tick marks on example 6, it says which postulate, if any, can be used. On A, if you have a pair of angles, another pair of angles, and a pair of sides. So we know we have an A and an A and an S. We just got to pick the right way to write this. The correct way is to name the included side in the middle. So that one's angle side angle. This one you can tick mark the shared side. So they have a pair of angles, and a pair of side, and one side pair. So this one is also angle side angle. Now this one has the only other thing we can tick mark are these vertical angles, but just because angle pairs are all the same does not mean they're congruent. This one there's no set AAA, there's not anything like that. So these are not, you can't prove that they're congruent. They might be, but you can't prove it because the tick marks are not the 3 that we've learned so far. Okay, one more example, 7 and 8. Mark the drawing and show the given information. On this one, they're telling us that E is in the middle. And when you know that E is in the middle of something, you can tick mark the segment. See how KW goes all the way across? If E is in the middle, we can tick mark that. They told us that KEG, that would be this angle, and WEH, we'll go ahead and tick mark that. and they told us that K and W are the same. Now I'm purposely not drawing a right angle box. You really don't know that they're perpendicular, so just use a little curve, and I'm using two curves to show that. So on this one, they've given us the first three letters of the left triangle. K corresponds with W, E corresponds with E, and G corresponds with H. This one's angle side angle because they have two angle pairs and one side pair, and the side is included. On this one, FP is congruent to HP. Okay, this one I think I think I'll sketch it so that you'll see them as separate triangles, because I think this one might be easier to look at. Since they're taking all the way from F up to P, do you see the two triangles that are inside that shape kind of overlapping? It's not a very good drawing, but it'll work. On this one, so I'm going to mark it. FP is the same as HP, and then angle F is the same as angle H. Now right now we don't have enough angle pair, we don't have enough pairs. You have to have three pairs. But if you look at this picture, let's see, what else would be the same? See how they both use the letter, or the angle P up here? This angle P and this angle P. So it is angle side angle. I mean, if I wanted to, on my separate picture, I could mark, I'll use 3 tick marks, because it's the same angle. When I pulled out that triangle in this one too, I still have the same angle, so it's angle P. So on this one, they started with P, and we need to start with P for our second triangle. F corresponds with H, and S corresponds with R. So sometimes if you'll redraw the picture, it might help you draw your congruence statement. Let me know if you have any more questions.